Hi everyone, it's Mindy from My Creative Scoop, and I'm back with another Copic marker tutorial for Ellen Hutson. Today I'm using this brand new stamp set, and it's called Good Egg. It's a fun, really fun little stamp set, and I love the little puns that come with it for the sayings. So today we're going to be coloring this really adorable hen with a couple of little chicks and this little egg on the floor. So those are the only stamps that there are from the stamp set, and then I'm going to be sharing with you how to create this hen house in the background along with the bushes and the grass. So I've already sketched out my little hen house, so very simple. I just used this little ruler that I have, and I googled a couple of different hen houses. I always Google like cartoon hen houses, because the lines are a little bit more sharp and a little more precise, so that way you can it's easier to take that image and put it down on paper just by doing it freehand. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to color is the hen house. I like to do my backgrounds first, so that way I know if I accidentally go in a little bit too far into some, parts of the stamped images, then I can go a little bit darker. But if I lay down the color on the hen first, and for example the red part, I don't want to take the chance of pulling any of that red into the grass. So I always like to kind of get the larger areas down first. So I'm going to start with my YG13, and this line that I created right down in the background here, that's going to be the bottom part of the grass. So it's going to be right in between where the grass starts and where the little bushes or trees in the background begin. So I'm going to go ahead and take my YG13 and just lay some color right along that line that I created with my pencil and my ruler. And the same thing over on this side. And then I'm going to come out a little bit more. This time I'm going to be a little streakier. And by making it a little streaky and having all that white gap between, it's going to be easier now to lay down my next lighter color and get a better blend. So now I'm going to take my YG00, stick that right there so you can see what I'm using, and then I'm just going to go back over the YG13 and blend this out. Now on my card over here, right about the elbow of the little hen, I have it stopped so that way I can start putting some dirt down. So we're just going to come all the way down till about here, and we're going to fill in the rest of this area. All with this YG00. So the same thing, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I'm actually going to have it kind of go back a little bit. And we're going to be making a really heavy shadow underneath the hen house, so this is actually going to be covered up. So I'm not going to focus too much on coloring directly underneath the hen house at this point. So now we're gonna deepen it up a little bit. So I'm gonna go back over that darkest point where we added that YG13, and I'm gonna take my YG17 and just continue that line right along the top. And then again, I'm gonna come out a little bit more being streaky. And same thing on this side. And then I'm going to take my YG13 and blend this out a little bit more. So I'm just going to pull it out, and this color is going to lay nicely in between the streaks that we made with the YG17. And once I get to about the edge of where we stopped those streaks, I'm going to come out a little bit farther, creating more little streaks using the YG13. So that way we can go back and add some more of that YG00 and get this all blended nicely. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit more right along the border here. Okay, so now back with our YG00. And get a nice blend right along the edge. Now I'm actually going to take my YG13 and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of color using the YG00. Just because there's such a difference between these two colors. But I really love the way the YG00 looks, especially for summer and spring. It's a really pretty color. Okay, so I'm going to put my YG00 away, go back with my YG13, just so I can get a little bit more of a blend going on here in between those, the dark YG17 and the 13. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do the hen house. So for that we're going to be using E30, E31, E33, and E44. I'm going to start with my E31 just because I don't want to add too much color at first, especially since it's a sketch that that we've hand done. So that way it's easier to kind of cover up if you're not overly happy. For example, if you didn't like the lines that you added in between, once you start getting some color down, you can easily cover it up with going over it with the E33. So I'm just going to go right along the top of the roof and start to come down. Same thing over here, and then also right here, because these little flaps from the roof are actually in a different direction, so they're kind of hanging down off of the roof. So let's go ahead and finish that part before we start everything else. I always like to color in sections so that way you're working with the ink while it's still wet. So then we're going to take E30 and I'm just going to come out a little bit more. I'm pulling the E31 down. So I'm dragging it out and then across here. Oops. And then now let's take that E33, and again I'm going to go right in between each of these little boards, adding a little bit of definition. And also right along the top, so just very thin. And then let's repeat. So now let's go back with the E31, pulling this color down so that way we're really defining the boards in between on the roof. And then let's take that E30 and get a nice blend in between each of those sections, so it's not just a harsh line in between each of those boards. So once we have that nice and blended out, then we can just go ahead and do one swipe over. So that way that center part stays its lightest. So if you feel that you've kind of lost those lines or the definition, you can always go back and just touch it up just a little. So I'm gonna just kind of give a little flick just to pull it down a little. And then let's take that E31, and right below that line we're just gonna add a little bit of a shadow, and we're gonna start coming down and around those little scalloped edges. And then let's take that E30 and just fill in the rest. So now we're going to do the same thing, go all the way around. We're going to start with that E31 again. And I'm going to trace the lines on the hen house. So I'm just going to come right across. And then here I'm going to make a line, just tracing that outline, and then I'm going to make another line going across. So I'm kind of flicking going off, but I'm not going fully to that other side of the edge. So this is going to be the darker point, over here is going to be lighter. So that way it looks 3D. And then I'm going to go with my E30. Continue pulling that E31 all the way to the edge now. And the same thing over here. This time we're going to pull it across to the other side. And now let's go back with E33. I'm going to start at that edge where it's the darkest point and just kind of give a little flick, and wherever my marker stops, that's where I'm going to stop. Same thing right here. I'm going to trace that little line and then give a little flick. And then under here is actually going to be shadowed. And the same thing over here. This is the part of the roof that has a little bit of a shadow. And then let's take that E31. And then the E30. Just fill it in. Notice I'm not trying to blend out all those lines. I just want to do one quick swipe, so that way I don't lose any of that definition that we just made. So now I'm going to take my E44 and we're just going to add a little bit of shadows. So right underneath the little scalloped edge, I'm just going to trace going around the bottom so it looks like that scalloped edge is casting a shadow onto the darker part of, or the bottom part of the hen house. And then here we're going to make this shadow a little bit darker, and over here. And let's go ahead and do the inside. So the part that's going in farther, the back part here, is going to be the darkest because it's the deepest point. So I'm just going to trace this line, trace this line, and then I'm going to take my E33. Really get those colors moving. And let's take a little bit of W7. Really get that shadow a little bit darker. And let's go back with E44. And then E33. So since we still have the E33 out, I'm just going to give a little trace on the legs. And then I'm going to take my E31 and just fill in the rest of the leg. So the little part where the chicks go onto, we're going to go ahead and take the same E31. I'm going to trace the little board coming out. And we're going to add a little line here and a little line there. And then go back with E33. And then now with my E30, I'm just going to fill in the rest of it. So before we get to the shadowed areas, let's go ahead and finish the dirt. So I'm going to start with my E30, and let's just add a little bit of a shadow directly under the chicks. So I'm just going to kind of very lightly, I'm not pressing very hard, I'm just adding a little bit of a shadow, little scribbles. And then I'm going to take my E0000 and right at the edge of that E30, I'm just going to bring out that color, blend it out a little bit. And then come up in between the little chicks all the way till you get to that edge of the grass. Alright, so we have that down. Let's go ahead and start doing the little definition for the grass. So I'm going to go back with my YG13 and just go ahead and make little tiny flicks. And I'm going to come right at the base of where we stopped with the green, and just here and there, not everywhere, but just add a couple little flicks there just so you can tell that there's like a little edge along the grass. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do the shadow right underneath the hen house. So I'm going to come out just a little bit because I'm thinking where the roof is. So I'm going to start here and it's going to wrap all the way around. You're going to come in front of the stand. And then you want to follow the same shape of the hen house. So now I'm going to kind of have it turn and go underneath that little stand for the chickens to go inside. Now I'm going to take my same YG13 and I'm just going to fill in everything below the hen house. And let's go back with YG00. Just to make the grass come out a little bit more. And then I'm going to take my C4, and it's going to be a lot darker directly underneath the hen house. And then I'm going to come out with my C2. And then I'm going to trace right underneath the little stand for the chicks to go in. And there we have it. So I just saw this part. I'm going to take my E31 and make this side of the roof a little bit darker. Okay, so moving along. Our hen house is finished. We're going to go ahead and start coloring up those little chicks. So for that, we're going to be needing Y35, Y02, and Y000, YR04, and then for the hen, we're going to be using E30, E33, E31, and E44, and then R35 and R37, and I'll have all these colors listed below as well. So let's start with the little chicks. So I'm going to start with my Y35, and I'm just going to add a little bit of color to where the darkest point is, or where the shadowed areas are. So right underneath the little chick's face, and coming down his chest, and a little bit underneath his wings, and along the bottom part of his body, and on the back of his head. So I'm going to go ahead, since these are really quick little colors, so we're not going to be spending a whole lot of time on them. I'm just going to go ahead and do all three at the same time. So now I'm going to take my Y02, and I'm going to come out a little bit more. And then my Y000, I'm sorry, it's 00. And I'm just going to fill in the rest of the white area. And if you feel like your chick is too bright, too bold, you can always tone it down a little with some E0000. So just go over it completely. And I'm actually going to go back with my Y35 just to kind of touch up a little bit of those shadowed points. And again with my Y02. And then with my YR04, I'm just going to fill in that little beak, not a whole lot of room for any shadows. And I'm also going to trace the little feet and legs. Okay, so now for the hen. We're going to go ahead and start with our with our E31. So we want the wings, the arms, and the top part of the head to be darker, and her chest is going to be white. So let's start with the E31 and just add a little bit of shadow right in this little crease on both sides of the wings. And also coming up those little lines here, and start coming up the side of the head just a little. And then I'm going to take my E30, oops, and just come out a little bit more. Really blend out that E31. Trace the side of the wings a little bit since we are doing the no line technique. We just want to kind of cover it up and make it so that the outline is the same color, which basically is, since it's the light brown. And now I'm going to take my E40s, fill in the rest of the white area. And then we're going to go ahead and go back with our E33 just to define those shadows a little bit more. So I'm just going to pick and choose a few little places right underneath the chin of the chicken, so that way it's not just outlined, it just has little shadows here and there, just to kind of give it that feathery look. And then let's take our E31, pull the color out a little bit more, go up a little higher on those parts where you added that E33. And I'm going to give a little bit of a shadow along the bottom part where the feathers are kind of going outwards. So now let's take the E30 and I'm going to do like a heavy flick so that way it blends nicely into the E0000 that we used. So that way it stays its lightest right at the edge. And to deepen it up just a little bit more, I'm going to go back with my E44 and just add a little bit of definition right in that corner. So now I'm going to go back just a little bit to blend it out, just so it's not so harsh, with my E31. Just kind of blur it out a little bit. And I also see right here that I need to pull this across. And I'm going to make this shadow a little bit bigger. Okay. So now let's go ahead and take the YR04. I'm just adding a little bit of color to the beak, and then I'm going to take my Y35 to fill it in, just so there's a little bit of definition there. And then let's go ahead and take C4, C2, and C0 for the front part of the chicken on the chest. So I'm going to start with my C2. And I'm going to trace the lines that are here for the feathers. We want to hide the fact that the lines are brown because we want it to have that no line look, so we want to give it a little bit of a gray tone. And then right underneath this brown area up here, we're going to add a little bit of a shadow. And then all on the inside. So we want to give that hen a roundness appearance. So anything that's farthest away, so back here is farther away, this is closer up, you want it to be a little bit more shadowed. And then also we want to make a little shadow underneath. So now let's take that C0 and just pull it out a little bit more. So I'm just softening up that edge. And this is a light enough color, and if you have C00 instead, you can also use that. But this should blend nicely into the white, so we're just adding a little bit of shadow. The trick to coloring white is to leave a white space. You just want to give a little bit of a shadow to the shadowed areas. So we're going to deepen the shadow a little bit more by using C4. So just right underneath the face and in this little corner here where we went darkest with the brown, we want to do the same thing with the gray. So then let's go ahead and take that C0 again, and we're just going to pull out that C4 just a little bit, soften up that little edge. And then let's go ahead and take the YR04 and do the feet. And I have my little micron pen to do the eyes, so I'm just gonna do that on the hen and on the little chicks. And then let's color the egg. So let's go ahead and get out that C2. We're gonna make a little bit of a shadow underneath the yolk and coming out, and a little bit where it starts, where it curls. And then I'm going to come out with my C0 a little bit more. So I'm going to actually take the C0 and fully outline the egg so it doesn't, so I'm kind of replacing that brown outline. And then let's take the Y35, color the one side of the yolk. So we're going to, right where we added that little bit of gray, we're going to make that our darkest point in that corner. And then let's take the Y02 and pull it all the way through. Okay, so then we're going to take the R37 and closest to the head, we're going to trace up those little, I don't even know what they're called, so we'll just call it her hair. And then we're going to take R35 and come out a little bit more. I want to call it a gobbler, but that's the wrong bird. All right, so now since we have that little bit of the lighter area, since we didn't want to go into it with the green, now I'm going to take my YG13 and just carefully trace right around the red so the grass continues there, so in that way it really crisps up the redness and makes it stand out a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the little bushes in the background. So I'm going to take my YG13 again and just make little scribbles. So I'm going to come up along the bottom, and I'm not going to finish it. I'm just going to give a little bit of a shadow just right along the bottom, kind of imagining the little trees and bushes in the background. So you want to go a little higher. So it's almost like little W's, little waves. Same thing over here, we want it to continue. And then I'm going to take my YG00, oops, and I'm going to create the little trees or bushes that are way back in that background. So now I'm going to take my YG17, do the same thing, adding a little bit more texture and color. And then for the sky, we're gonna go ahead and put our clouds down first. So I'm gonna take my C00. We're gonna make a couple of clouds before we add the blue. And I wanted to make a little bit more realistic clouds. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of give a little scribble. This is going to be the bottom of the clouds. And then this time we're actually going to be using our C00. And I'm just going to give a little flick going up just to smooth so it's not so dark. We would just want to kind of smooth it out a little bit. And now let's take our BG000 and start kind of towards the bottom, go around all those little bushes. And then you're going to start to come up and form those clouds. So you don't have to stop right when you get to the top. You want it to kind of go off to the side, go in different directions, so that way it gives it a more unique shape. And I think I need a little bit of a refill. So then continue. Come on, my refill's not going all the way down. Here, let's go this way. There it is. Up here. So then let's go ahead and take the BG40s and continue just blending these out because you still have a little bit of white space in between. And I want this cloud to go off the page, so that's why I didn't go up all the way. So then let's go ahead and go back with our C0 just to give a little that shadow back. So I'm just kind of tracing where it kind of left off. And then again with my C00, I'm just going to pull it through a little bit more. So I didn't go all the way across, I just kind of darkened a few little areas and then come right along the bottom. And if you want to flick up a little bit higher on some of them, kind of make the shadow a little bit more defined, you can. Alright, then we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of texture down here to the ground. So I'm going to take my E31 and just go ahead and add some dots. Maybe there's little feet on the floor for them. Remember, anything that's closer together, so closest to the edge of this paper here is going to be bigger. So you'll make a couple here that's a little bit bigger, and if you want to add any in the back, go really, really small. That will make it seem like it's farther away. Add some here. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my E30. And this is a lighter color that we used for the ground, the shadow underneath. So it's not going to add too much color. It's just going to give it a little bit more texture. All right, so there we are. We're all finished. We have two of the same, a little bit different. I went a little darker on this one. I actually like it better, so let's fix that. So let's take the E30, and I'm just gonna darken the hen's face a little bit more. And let's take the E31. And I'm going to go back with my E30. All right, so that is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you again soon. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.